Good morning. Welcome to another fresh edition of your Breakfast Show Leadership TV inside Nigeria. Today is April 9, 2025, and my name is Winifred Gbebo, your host on the program. We are only going to be reviewing front headline stories of some select newspapers this Wednesday midweek edition of the show. And of course, as usual on the program, we like to flag up with Nigeria's most influential leadership. Leadership held the 17th conference awards ceremony yesterday at the Old Banquet Hall of the Presidential Villa. And of course, at the conference, Presidency defends Nigeria's fiscal federalism from the keynote speaker, the Vice President Shetima. The kicker says no universal template. Mismanagement are a real problem, Shetima. We must strengthen our system, Namadi. We ensure all our children are in school, Kano Governor. Akwa Ibom boast of impactful policies. We don't tamper with press freedom coming from the AGF. And of course, the chairman of a leadership group says our awards are to inspire Zainab Nda Asaya. Let's watch video of the conference yesterday at the presidential villa. Meanwhile, as we play the video, the keynote speech yesterday by the VP Shetima has continued to generate controversies. We have the story on Vanguard. Vanguard says corruption, not federalism, Nigeria's problem. ACF, Afenifere, Waneze, others tackle VP Shetima. The story runs on page 26 of Vanguard newspaper. This is a fallout of the Leadership 17th Conference Awards ceremony yesterday at the Presidential Villa. Of course, the cultural and social political organizations did not waste time in reacting to the keynote speaker's address, who talked about Nigeria's fiscal federalism. And we want to see some part of that. Is a full page dedicated to that. The story actually runs on page 26 of Vanguard newspaper. Vice President Kashim Shettima yesterday insisted that corruption and not true federalism was Nigeria's major problem. He also faulted those who hold the view that federalism was not working in Nigeria, saying there was no perfect federalism in the world. The vice president's position elicited mixed reactions from the Middle Belt Forum, Afenifere, Ohaneze, Indigbo, and the convener of the Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement, NDSM, and Kyo Briggs. Shetima, who spoke as the keynote speaker at the 17th edition of the Leadership Annual Conference and an Awards held at the State House Banquet Hall, Abuja, also listed the mismanagement of the country's resources as another factor that has retarded the nation's progress over the years. Senator Shetima, who was the special guest of honor at the event, attended by top industry and political players and foreign diplomats, cautioned against the temptation of romanticizing foreign systems or prescribing imported solutions that fail to account for our distinct social, ethnic, and demographic complexities. His words, the problems we attribute to our federal system often stem from the poor mismanagement of what is already written within our grasp, not from any inherent flaw in our constitutional architecture. The issue is not merely how much each federated unit accrues, but how judiciously such resources are utilized. However, the NBF says, reacting to the vice president's remarks, it insisted that corruption and not lack of true federalism is Nigeria's problem. The national president of NBF, Dr. Beatrice Pogu, however, blamed the endemic corruption in the country onto lack of true federalism. He said, I'm sorry to disagree with the position of the vice president because the federalism we practice brought about the corruption he is talking about. Ohaneze on his own part says it is not true, kicking against the vice president's position. The Igbo Social Cultural Organization, Ohaneze Indigbo, insisted that restructuring will face the problems confronting the country. The National Publicity Secretary of Ohaneze, Dr. Eze Chiku, said it is not true that Nigeria's problem is corruption rather than federalism because it is anomalous present structure that incubates corruption in our polity. The same thing goes with Afenifere. Afenifere says restructuring will curb corruption. Similarly, the Pan-Yoruba Social Cultural Organization, Afenifere, noted that restructuring will solve the many problems facing Nigeria. Afenifere's National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Jare Ajayi, said, while we acknowledge the fact that corruption is a big problem in Nigeria, it is our position and conviction that if we restructure this country, so many problems confronting this country, including corruption, will be addressed substantially. ACF too, that is Arewa Consultative Forum, says government is biggest enabler of corruption. When contacted, the National Publicity Secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, Professor Tuko Muhammad Baba, said the Vice President said nothing new, alleging that government remains the biggest enabler of corruption. The ACF spokesperson says, and structure. And BRICS says corruption is only part of our problems. On her part, the convener of the Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement, NDSM, and Kyobi BRICS, said the lack of true federalism is the reason corruption thrives. As we just took the main headline story, we also have other stories gracing the cover of the paper this Wednesday. Bandits attack Sokoto, kill 3 fishermen. Only President VP deserve immunity. Still on the page, front cover of Leadership. 4 killed in renewed airborne land disputes. Kano lawyers decry ban on Salah Doba. Nigeria reaffirms one China policy, says Beijing, not bully. Nigeria reaffirms one China policy, says Beijing, not bully. And on the business boss of Leadership, NCC gives telcos 90 days to resolve unclaimed airtime. The Nigerian Communications Commission has issued a 90-day compliance window to telecommunications operators as part of a bold regulatory initiative to resolve the long-standing issue of unutilized and unclaimed subscriber charges. This announcement was made during a high-level virtual stakeholder engagement forum held on Tuesday, aimed at refining and enforcing new guidelines that protect consumer rights in Nigeria's evolving telecom landscape. These are paragraphs excerpts to the leading story on the business boss of Leadership on the cover this Wednesday. NCC gives telcos 90 days to resolve unclaimed airtime. Above the masthead of Leadership, PCC resolves 15,077 cases in 6 months. 2025 Hajj, Nakon urges peace amidst squabbles. The story is on page 51 of Leadership. It should be recalled that the Nakon, the MD or the DG, was recently appointed by President Bola Tinubu, and as it were, is already generating controversy in the organization. We move over to the page 3 for where we have our stand. Today's stand is on constricting Nigeria's democratic space. Constricting Nigeria's democratic space. Today's stand on Leadership newspaper. Recent events in Nigeria's political and social landscape are beginning to raise critical questions about the state of democracy in the country. From state governments imposing bans on public rallies to the intimidation of citizens exercising their rights to free speech, the constriction of democratic space in Nigeria is becoming an increasingly pressing issue. And just towards the conclusion, whether through banning rallies, restricting media freedom, or intimidating citizens who voice legitimate concerns, these actions threaten the very foundation of democracy. Nigeria must prioritize protecting the rights of its citizens to freely express themselves, engage in peaceful protest, and participate fully in political life without fear of repression. Only through such protections can the country truly call itself a democratic nation. Excerpts from today's stand on Leadership newspaper, constricting Nigeria's democratic space. From page 3, we move to the back page, Speed for Wednesday column with Olufunke Baruwa. Today, Wednesday column, she's writing on Between Labor and Live Stream, a nation's maternal health crisis. We must reframe maternal health not as a charity issue, but as a human rights issue. Between Labor and Live Stream, a nation's maternal health crisis. Of course, there was a trending video of a woman who died, a pregnant woman who was rejected at a private hospital and died before she could be taken to state government hospital in Lagos State. Just before we leave the back page, let's look at what Ghana Must Go is offering today. Elon Musk says they want to kill me. Of course, Ghana Must Go asks, they want to fast track your trip to mass. Very funny. It's on that note we conclude review of leadership newspaper this Wednesday. Let's move to the next paper we have on our menu, and that is Vanguard. Let's look at the full menu today on Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard says tariff war, US slams Nigeria over import ban on 25 items. US slams Nigeria over import ban on 25 items. Says Nigeria's policies create significant trade barriers that lead to lost revenue for US businesses. The story runs on page 5 of Vanguard. NSA warns against ransom payment to terrorists, kidnappers, others. Lead poisoning. Federal government indicts monarchs, orders illegal miners out of Zamfara. And in sports, Bayelsa wins Niger Delta Sports Festival with 42 gold. That takes us to the stories above the masthead of Vanguard. Shettima inaugurates NISO board, signals new era in power sector reform. Cybercrime Act, emergency rules, journalists narrate ordeal in hands of policemen in Rivers. Corruption, like I said earlier, one of the leading stories today on Vanguard newspaper, fallout of leadership 17th annual conference and award ceremony. It says corruption of federalism, Nigeria's problem, ACF, Afenifere and the others tackle, VP Shettima. And lastly, on Vanguard this Wednesday, Ndume knocks Tinubu, alleges lopsided federal appointments. The story is on page 11 of Vanguard. Ndume knocks Tinubu, alleges lopsided federal appointments. It's on that note we conclude review of front headline stories of Vanguard newspaper. For more, don't forget to log into the website of Vanguard. We move over to the next paper we have on our menu, and that is The Punch. The Punch says 11 PDP governors urge Supreme Court to halt Rivers emergency rule. Governors finally file suit as President Nas gets 14 days to respond. This is a leading story today on The Punch. However, it was widely speculated that some PDP governors went to court to challenge the imposition of emergency rule in Rivers State. But however, we're not so sure on the clarity of it. But The Punch categorically stated on his cover today that 11 PDP governors or Supreme Court to halt Rivers emergency rule as governors finally file suit as President Nas gets 14 days to respond. Beside the masthead of The Punch, Zulum says military failing to repair insurgents. DHQ, that is Defense Headquarters, fires back. Zulum says military failing to repair insurgents. Defense Headquarters fires back. That also concludes front headline stories on The Punch. The Punch does not have too many stories on its cover today because they are wraparound adverts. From The Punch, we move to Blueprint, next paper on our menu. Blueprint is talking also insecurity. Zulum begs federal government over rising Boko Haram attacks. Ohaneze warns Southeast governors. Bono governors say we need more efforts to dislodge miscreants. Sit up or we call for state of emergency, Indigbo tell Southeast governors. Over 50% of national earnings being spent on insecurity, Senator Karimi. These are riders or kickers to the leading story today on Blueprint newspaper. Insecurity. Zulum begs federal government over rising Boko Haram attacks. Ohaneze warns Southeast governors. It's also the story we have just beside the masthead of The Punch that we mentioned earlier. Zulum says military failing to repair insurgents as Defense Headquarters fires back. With 1.76% growth, 25.59% contribution, agriculture making impacts. Bagudu says increased budgetary allocation game changer for nation's economy. Defamation, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan slams $5 billion suit on Senator Wambuyi. Mumbai in London, Africa's economic renaissance lies in extensive trade, not aid charity. Police detain 3 for operating illegal baby factory in Lagos. First UK baby born following womb transplant. First UK baby born following womb transplant. That is a congratulations and kudos to innovations. The story runs on page 18 of Blueprint. First UK baby born following womb transplant. Lassa fever, NCDC records 14 new cases, 3 deaths. That takes us to the stories just beneath the masthead of Blueprint. FCT enrolls 198 FCT enrolls 198,810 for health insurance scheme in 1 year. Oil price climbs briefly amid Trump's trade war. Sport, why Chelsea must sign Osimhen, Mikel. And above the masthead of Blueprint, Tinubu mourns as Diamond Bank Chair Pascal Dozie dies at 85. From that, we conclude review of front headline stories on Blueprint this Wednesday. For more, don't forget to log into the website of Blueprint at www.blueprint.ng. From Blueprint, we'll move over to the next paper, and incidentally, the last paper we have for review this Wednesday, and that is THISDAY. THISDAY says after slamming 14% tariff, U.S. kicks against Nigeria's import ban on 25 product categories. Says customs practices constitute major obstacles to trade. Declares procurement processes corrupt, not transparent, pigs holes in maritime administration. Hails CBN for collapsing multiple official exchange rates into single window. Says funds repatriation remains barrier to investment. These are kickers to the leading story on THISDAY, Wednesday, April 9, 2025. After slamming 14% tariff, U.S. kicks against Nigeria's import ban on 25 product categories. Says customs practices constitute major obstacles to trade. Declares procurement processes corrupt, non-transparent, pigs holes in maritime administration. Hails CBN for collapsing multiple official exchange rates into single window. Says funds repatriation remains barrier to investment. These are kickers to the leading story on THISDAY. And still on THISDAY, Tinubu has borrowed $9.45 billion for spurious projects, bypassing National Assembly. Coming from Senator Ndume, who also accused the President Tinubu of appointments of violence, appointments on a constitution violation. That takes us to a story about the masthead of THISDAY. Tinubu industry leaders, more visionary banker, business icon Pascal Dozie, NESG Obi Ezekwesili, Toriola, Wenke Chukwu expressed sadness, described his demise as great loss to private sector nation. With that, we bring to a close today's Inside Nigerian Leadership Television. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership, www.leadership.ng, for more stories. My name is Winifred Ugbobo. I look forward to having you see on the program for another fresh edition of the program tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio.